Hello, everybody. Welcome to my favorite shitty movie. I am super psyched to talk about this. I'm going to say it, obscure, odd gem of a film. Amazing dude, historian extraordinaire, film buff to the nth degree. Justin Humphries is back. He has brought us 1973's Wonder Women, plural. The great Nancy Kwan, basically is this a riff on the mad scientist who has this squad of killer gals who feel like they can just transplant anything and create superhumans or make immortality possible, as long as Nancy Kwan can clone herself, because she's the only one who can do that. And so the immortality promise, we'll get into that in the show. There's a little bit of a logic problem, but it's cool, it's fun, it's sexy. Look at this poster. I mean, doesn't that scream like 1973? I mean, everything about this is just fantastic. And before I get too far into the program and bring up my partner in crime, I wanted to talk about the Rondo Awards, because we have Justin here the night of learning. He has been nominated for 2 Rondo Awards. One for, if you haven't had it, we plugged it on the show before, is George Pal. This is the definitive scholarly, except it reads like so fast and it's so good. Take on George Pal, which obviously the father of modern day science fiction film. Very progressive. Lots of people that get a lot of credit have copied from this man. So you should really see where it all began. So Justin is up for this tome that he spent years doing, impeccably researched, and he's also up for a little book, self-promotion time. I contributed 5 essays. Justin contributed 5 essays. And so basically Justin has these 2 books that are up for nonfiction book of the year from the Rondos. If you don't know what the Rondos are, look it up. We'll put it on our page later, and another piece of shameless promotion, because you can actually vote for us and try to help, Justin get another Rondo, which is really what we're here about. So it all kind of worked out. I'm wearing from director Greta Gerwig. She had a film that just directed itself this year, so I thought I should wear a t-shirt in anticipation of the Oscars. What else do I have to say? Not much. I want to get into this movie because it's super weird. I want to bring up Todd Anderson, my partner in crime, who just, I'm so grateful. This is my last version of the show before I go off to Belfast to make a movie that hopefully will not fit on the program that we're here to celebrate. But if it doesn't, or if it does, then I guess we'll have a lead-in. So there's always that promise. So he's going to be taking over the show with some of our favorite guests coming back to fill my chair while I'm away. And I just wanted to thank him, because it's a lot of work we do. The stills, he's Kubrick. He does all of the behind the scenes. Anderson Family Players, which we are now pulling out if you watch our page. So even if you missed the show, you should really look at the short films he does every week with his family. The only tonight, he's playing the role of Dr. Sue Anderson, but we know him as Todd Anderson. Bring yourself into the program.
Hi, everybody. Holy crap. I love when Justin comes on the show, because he usually, if he doesn't bring a movie I've never heard of before, which he usually does.
Yep.
And I'm always like, whoa. And then I fall in love with it. And then I have to buy a copy of it,
Yes.
Which has been the history. So I'm thinking, he was telling me before the show, this thing's on Blu-ray. I watched it on YouTube.
Same.
It looked terrible. A lot of the sound was me. I couldn't quite tell what was happening a lot of the time.
Yep.
So I certainly want to see this in high definition.
Thank you, Jeff. I know. I have to see it. It's so funny, because he's been telling me about it for far too long. It was my first time seeing it. He had shared the trailer with me. I want to say close to 2 years ago. And I was like, and I'm so bad. I don't think of YouTube because I'm not in my 20s anymore. And so I was like, and watching it again, even in the bad version that's on YouTube. And I don't let that stop you from watching it. It's totally watchable. It's not like,
I went with the free version. There's a rent or buy version.
Same.
They're the same. They're exactly the same.
But there was such joy, because it's 1973. It's shot in the Philippines, but the colors, it almost prefigures like the fembots, the Bionic Woman, all this kind of stuff that was going to come about 2 or 3 years later. But it's also another film. It's rare still to have an ensemble of women-led, kind of badasses taking over a movie. And it's odd, and we'll talk about this in more detail because Justin knows all the details himself, but this was rated PG.
Yeah, I know. It's like
But the opening sequence is like we'll get into like how great these flash cuts are and the way the women are posed and they're dressed and it's fabulous. But there's like 3 topless chicks, randomly topless.
Yeah, the movie starts with naked ladies in a pool going around in circles underwater.
I was
That's
like,
how it starts.
it's like, and this is it's PG the way like Tourist Trap is PG, which is to say what?
Well, I always think when I think PG, I always think of Sorcerer, just because I made the bad choice of showing that to my very young son because it was rated PG and it had Roy Scheider, and I was like, I remember this being pretty good. Maybe it'll be fun. And no, it wasn't. Hillary was very mad at me.
Was she?
Yeah, because that movie starts with like graphic murder.
it's Friedkin. Anyway,
she understands the goodness. It's just not appropriate for a small child.
Well, education is never a waste. Let's get into the madness that is this movie. As we've mentioned, the great Justin Humphries is back. He always brings all the good stuff. You have him to thank for us falling in love with William Shatner in Impulse.
Oh my God, so good.
Hey Little Girl, Want to Ride? That was an alternate title, y'all. He's brought a bunch of fun stuff. This one is maybe the most batshit crazy of the group, so I really like it. In addition to, again, guys, buy it right now. George Pal, support it and then vote for it. He also got, I think he won the Rondo for his Dr. Fives Companion, which is kind of like the tome that defines the great Vincent Price films. And if you haven't seen the Dr. Fives films, like you should, because if you want to defend Saw and you think Jigsaw is interesting, Dr. Fives is interesting. The maniacal murder plots put Jigsaw to shame. I'm just saying. So if you're into that kind of thing, you can't do better than Vincent Price just digging in. Without further ado, let us bring up our special guest. This is Justin Humphries. He is back to the show. Woo!
Hey everybody, how's it going? And well, to your point, I've always been fascinated by the 70s PG. The 70s PG was a different animal. There was no PG-13. The ratings were young. And it's like a 70s PG is like machine gunnings, throat slittings, like heads blown off, topless nudity, whatever. And like I was saying to you guys before the show, it's kind of like, the ratings board is kind of like, well, there's no hardcore penetration and there's no like real snuff footage. And, there's only 6 naked women in it. So let's give it a PG.
Well, but also, this is one of those movies, again, shot in the Philippines of a different era, but they give quite a bit of camera time to cockfighting. Get your minds out of the gutter, razor blades on animals, right? And it's not faked. So
no, that's the one scene in the movie that really I can't get behind. That's the only one. And it's also like, I love Monty Hellman's movie Cockfighter. It's a fantastic movie, except the cockfighting scenes. Like it's revolting. It's a fantastic film otherwise. So that's one, like, hit the fast forward button. That's all I can say. It's like, you're not, what happens. I mean, unless
so like what you're saying is Cannibal Holocaust rules. So you just after being murdered, you fast forward.
What I was going to say,
well, Cannibal Holocaust is just an awful movie all around, except for the soundtrack. It's like Cannibal Holocaust is like. Yeah. I will say this in defense of a movie like, I mean, the cockfighting is indefensible, so let's get that out of the way right now. But was it?
Right,
but with that said, Cannibal Holocaust exists solely to show like one revolting act of sadism after another, after another, after another, for the most jaded fucking weirdos on 42nd Street. The chuds come out to see Cannibal Holocaust, except the soundtrack's great. Yeah. The soundtrack to that movie is phenomenal. It's like it deserves a better movie. But anyway, but that aside,
before we get off this sequence though, because it was funny as the person who was curating the stills for tonight and trying to take stills on a blurry version on YouTube. Like there's a little bit, I'll be kind. There's a lot of kind of sophomoric filmmaking in terms of direction and editing and holding on things too long and things that you would cut out of. And it's not just a 70s sensibility. It's that, but it's weird because when I went to go take the stills and they really linger on the cockfighting sequence with these poor animals, there's camera angles and they spend so much time on it that is absolutely mirrored with the two women who do the kung fu together. Like the two women are shot like the cockfighting sequences from the same angles, looking up and the this and the that. And
you know what? I had never caught that. That's a really good catch. I hadn't caught that. I think it's because I'd sort of blotted the cockfight out. You know.
Yeah.
But the
director has
that's a good catch.
Here's the thing. It's odd. But let's talk about, because we were talking about like, how do you set a tone, right? How do you do that? And I feel like the opening to this movie, Justin, is so gonzo because it is almost no dialogue for like the first 5 minutes. And it's literally, I'll try to replicate because we can't show actual footage, what it looks like. So just make sure, and you have like shots like we're introducing the girls like in close. I mean, look at the colors and the pattern.
Let's get the music right. Dun 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 dun.
And in between all of that stuff, you have naked ladies spinning around underwater
in the pool.
As you should. I mean, literally, if the first 3 or 4 minutes don't grab you, then like just stay home and watch Merchant Ivory movies or something like that. You know, it's like there's some and one of the other things, like if you love drive-in movies and movies shot in the Philippines, like all the usual suspects show up. You know, Roberta Collins, who's in a million of the Women in Prison movies, and what is it? Of course, Sid Haig. Who eventually Sid made?
We prefer Simi Valley's Sid Haig.
But you guys,
Sid. Oh, I know. Well, and he gets to play a slick guy, like a slick character. But Sid actually, I talked to him about this, and he said he designed the costumes in it. And I don't know whether it was just his costumes or everybody's, but I hope it was everybody's, just because I love the idea of Sid Haig couturier. I adore that gun.
This is what I talk about. It's like proto fembots. I mean, it's fabulous what's going on.
It's just great. It's got that great kind of Thousand Eyes. What is it? What's the one? Thousand Eyes of Sumeru. Yep. What is it? That kind of. It's got that wonderful pulp comic book look that just won't quit. And the girls and the mini skirts and go-go boots and machine guns. Yes. That's like, I mean, then there must be 3 dozen of them, and it's wonderful. It's just wonderful, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's so good. Before I forget one thing, I wanted to add one thing about the cockfighting. Okay, Ross Hagen, our leading man, Mike Harbour. Ross, I think produced, might have directed, might have even starred in a movie shot in the Philippines called Super Cock. And a co-worker, a guy that worked with him several times, Enrique Tuceda, who co-wrote The Side Hackers and all this other stuff, he told me, I think it was either at Cannes or like the International Film Market, they were going to screen Super Cock to try and sell it to a distributor. And all of these like greasy porno producers show up with the hair showing and Supercock, it's gonna be great. Wonder if John Holmes is in it. You know, they're so excited for this, like what sounds like this supreme porn movie, and all it is about cockfighting, and they just like the walkouts start, and they just keep walking out, and it's a disaster. It's one of those titles like the Western The Devil's Bedroom. That's like you could show in a Sunday school, but it's got that great salacious title. So there's your cockfighting. But anyway, but
it's funny though, because it's working on another project with Lou Arkoff, the great Sam Arkoff's son, and talking about some of the classic AIP drive-in movies, like Drag Strip Girl and Reform School Girls, and all these kind of things. And he was saying to me what was so cool about what they did back in the day was like these guys, they were all men, they would sit around and they would just make up titles, and then they had an artist that would create a poster, and then they would take that poster with the title and they go to people with checkbooks, and that was all they had to do, and then they would fund it. And it was girl in the title, scantily clad, a threat of violence.
And that's the technique that Charles Band uses to this.
to this day. Castle Freak. You know, it's like,
they would show it to distributors, and they would show it to exhibitors, and they would say, which of these do you like best, which would sell the best.
right.
And I mean, who would not want to go see a movie called I Was a Teenage Werewolf? I mean, that's the most irresistible, one of the most irresistible titles there are, or Night of the Blood Beast, or
like Little House on the Prairie, but that's my favorite Michael Landon thing ever. I Was a Teenage Werewolf. It's just peak.
I love it. I mean, I that's another one where I would watch it 30 times before I'd watch Rebel Without a Cause once. It's like I mean,
hiding.
Before the show, you were taking down Oppenheimer, but now you've changed.
I'll take down Oppenheimer too. I would watch Wonder Woman 500 times before I would watch Oppenheimer a second time.
I co-sign what Justin's saying. I will not sit through Oppenheimer again.
You can watch it at least 3 more times, and it will be the same running time as Oppenheimer.
True story.
Yeah.
True story. And there's maybe more character development in this one. So there's that.
There's definitely a lot less pretension and a lot more fun. And a lot less pomposity, and actually a lot more Asian characters.
Yeah.
Note to you, Mr. Nolan.
Yeah.
Also,
you just reminded me though, like the media at large, not just social, all the media seems to want me to see Christopher Nolan's face all the time, and I don't know why that is. Is he?
Yeah.
Or is it something I did?
It's karma. It's karma catching up with us all. It's all of our past misdeeds. Having to listen to him talk about 2001: A Space Odyssey ad infinitum. But I mean, what was it? I discovered it about Wonder Woman. I discovered it off of TNT. It was running on TNT under the title it was shorter. It was a shortened version called The Deadly and the Beautiful. And again, like that's a can't miss title. I mean, so I think I had read a review of it by Mike Accomando, who's one of the best fanzine writers that ever lived. And it sounded interesting, and it exceeded all of my expectations all the way along. I was flabbergasted. And my brother and I watched it. And you all know the term like psychotronic movies. Like the Psychotronic Encyclopedia of Film or Psychotronic Video, meaning like drive-in or grindhouse or, low budget horror, all that stuff, Psychotronic. So I showed it to my brother, and I was writing for Psychotronic Video at the time. And he goes, now I completely understand what the term psychotronic means.
Oh,
it's like that movie is 180 proof. Full psychotronic.
I was going to ask you about this because you have the depth of the history, but watching this, it was like a softer, because to me, when I think of these kinds of women, and I think it's a fun subgenre, but I immediately go to Russ Meyer and Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. But there's something about this one that it's unique. It's not that. But it feels like of a piece. Like if I were going to do a film festival, I might go as weird as Chesty Morgan to.
Well, no, there's one that's very close, like not very close to this in tone, but similar in a lot of ways. Ted Michaels' The Doll Squad.
Oh wow, that's a great title.
You know about? Okay, so The Doll Squad and Ted always contended that they had lifted the idea for Charlie's Angels from it because it's about this team of, I think it's like 3 or maybe 5 female, I think secret agents, and Tura Satana is one of them. I think Francine York is one of them. And what's the lead? The lead on is it Christy or Chrissy on Charlie's Angels? What's but anyway, they have the same name. The Francine York character has the same name as the main character on Charlie's Angels.
But Kelly.
I think Kelly, but yeah, that might have been it. But what was it? But the thing about the Doll Squad is it's PG. There's like no, I don't remember there being any nudity to speak of. The violence isn't like rampant bloodshed. It isn't like veering into the like the Doris Wishman or Russ Meyer hard R or X-rated territory. It's much more it's much more about like sexy ladies in mini skirts, like kicking ass and firing machine guns.
So it doesn't go full exploitation. That's what's interesting to me about this movie and movies like it. PG rated exploitation. So they're doing the stuff that the hard R stuff does, just the very explicit elements are not there.
That's it. It's they don't push it all the way, it's but no,
your point though, Justin, earlier, because then you have this cockfight where again you'd be canceled today, justifiably so, with this guy who we barely get to know, and then they literally do this to him, and I'm like, that's pretty extreme and it's in close up, with the IKEA red blood, for a PG movie. It's like, oh, okay, just
70 PG, 70. I mean, think about think about how brutal or GP, take your pick, same thing. But think about how brutal Planet of the Apes and Beneath the Planet of the Apes were G. They were G.
Which is crazy.
Omega Man, Soylent Green, PG. Those are bloody movies. Those are bloody movies. The
Tourist Trap too is upsetting. That mask at the end is very
horrifying.
But it's nightmare inducing. It's like, and then you get the guy from like the Rifleman or whatever, and you're like, oh wait, Chuck Connors is a bad guy, and you're like, but it's like really. Speaking of Charlie's Angels, Tanya Roberts, just to bring it back. But but there is something kind of magical about that, and I think I know, Justin, you and I can wax poetic about everyone who's clutching pearls and getting offended by things that are like, really, the world's on fire and you're angry about what? Yeah, but there is something neat about seeing these films from a time where they're like, a kid could probably go see this and be okay. It's like we grew up reading the Grimm fairy tales, and suddenly we're like, I don't know. Like today, my favorite outrage I read this week, true story, the Brits have now upgraded Mary Poppins, G, not G, because there's one word that I have to say, I've seen the movie a million times, was actually in the play. I didn't know it was had racist, problematic, overtones, but they're like that whole thing. And I thought it's also, I must say, when I first saw it, I think I was 6 or 7 when my parents rented it. The first time I ever heard the word suffragette, right? There's Sister Suffragette, right? It's the whole song. It's a showstopper. And I remember that was the beginning of a mom's like, oh, women's rights, this and that. And I thought the idea that you're like, fuck, man, Mary Poppins is problematic. I'm like, it was like the highest grossing film of the year, 64, right?
Because of the chimney sweeps?
There's Jim Jiminy. We could do this all night. Absolutely.
That's bad. It's the chimney sweeps because it's like
no. There's a word that's used that
Hottentot. It was Hottentot.
Hottentot.
What does that even mean?
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. But it's like, literally, there's some asshole sitting there scrutinizing Mary Poppins and thinking, well, we can only show this, like, oh, you might not want to show this to the younger kids. Show them a safer PG movie, like Wonder Woman. Jesus Christ! Like, how many times in the history of mankind has anyone seen Mary Poppins and left it and said, I think I'll go do something racist? Ever. I've never heard such hogwash. It's like, but then like, it's, I don't know. I give up.
That only one political party is like, we should probably ban Mark Twain because he uses the N-word in a very specific usage written in a book at a very specific time. And you're like, okay. So I just, they want to ban To Kill a Mockingbird. The whole point of, hey man, you should walk in someone else's shoes, lost on them. But I think it's uncomfortable.
We forget about context. When people, there's a time when certain words shouldn't be used, and there's a time when they need to be used to make a point. They need to be used. To deny those words in that context, in the context of Huckleberry Finn or To Kill a Mockingbird, is to blatantly lie about history, to completely lie about it, and to dilute the message of those books that much further. But anyway, no.
Films like this, I love that you picked this because I'm going to guess the people who are going to be listening and watching, probably haven't seen it. So before we get into too much, like, walk us through it again. It's a very thin plot, y'all.
Yeah, tell us what happens.
What happens?
Oh, you know what it is? Okay, it's an and then movie. It's an and then movie.
Yes.
A bunch of a bunch of hot women in short shorts and mini skirts, kidnap a bunch of very highly paid professional athletes, and they take them back to their leader, the indomitable Dr. Sue, played by Nancy Kwan, and she will perform expensive transplants, extremely expensive transplants for old, decrepit, impotent, broken down Strom Thurmond like millionaires. And what happens is so Lloyd's of London is going to have to pay something like $500,000 or $1 million if this Hialeah player can, because of course it's the Philippines, you have to have Hialeah. And so they send out Mike Harbour, international man of mystery, played by the great Ross Hagen. Now, I love Ross Hagen. I love his movies. I love him in this. But I must confess, as I'm making notes, I wrote Eddie Money Man Ape. Because he always
I want Michael J. Pollard, but like tall. Like
I think he's more like he's got that kind of like He-Man, like Masters of the Universe haircut, and he's got that. But what I love about him is I love his grossness. I love what a gross character he is when he hits on Maria de Aragon. By the way, so anyway, Dr. Sue sends her women out to kill him. Right. And he winds up capturing one of them. She takes him to Dr. Sue's stronghold, and then everything starts to unravel from there. But the best part, there we go. Oh my God. The way he hits on her is so gross and nasty and ridiculous. It makes me fall over laughing every time. There's something so gross about it. But it's not just that. It's like after he's had coitus, you'll cut to him and he looks like a hog and slop. It's like these very specific gross things. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. But
I do have a clip of this scene that you guys are referencing right here with that.
This one?
No, go back to the gun in his face.
Okay, by the way,
what is it? It's like I never miss, and then she misses, and he holds up a pillow. He stops it with a pillow.
He holds up a pillow like that's gonna protect him. I'm like,
I have a clip of the scene.
Okay.
Sort of my family's interpretation.
Okay.
Enough time to really do shot for shot.
Okay. I hope the kung fu is as brilliant.
Very beautiful. And you're lucky from a guy like you. And I miss you. And I promise you, I will.
That's what I like about you. You're unpredictable.
I mean, well, clearly. I was hoping you'd do the smashing into the table and all that, because what makes the scene in the movie, so it was not a bad simulacrum of that sequence, but what I love so much about the movie is like, again, like he smashes into the table and he's got that, he does that big cake in the foreground. But my absolute favorite part is she takes off, he shoots at her, he misses. She runs down the hall. He's running down the hall, putting his shoes on and everything. And then he falls down the steps.
He falls down the steps. No
just to fall down the step. I just love it. I love it. It's like, that's what makes Wonder Woman. That's one of the many reasons I love it so dearly. The off beats, the awkward, weird beats. Like when he's chasing Maria de Aragon through the streets of Manila and the guys get in front of him and he just like stops there for a second to like punch him a couple of times and then takes off. Like
but when you mentioned that scene, so watching like her run through that marketplace, I was like, it totally reminds me of like the Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, where he just keeps running and he's in the same village and he's near the same river, and you're like, oh my God, I think it's like Ghost Protocol. I think it was like that one. But I was like, Tom Cruise did this, but Wonder Woman did it way earlier, and it's way funnier.
And isn't she in heels? I think she is. She sure runs like it, but
does not kick off the heels like some of us might if we were heels.
Well, I love, the what was it? There's something about the offbeats in it that's so great, where they'll do something
with this, like Hillary once again totally committing, as did you talk, like, because it's like, I'm actually a brown belt in Taekwondo, so I was like, what is she doing? She's like,
I love when people who don't know martial arts imitate it and do it earnestly.
They do.
Yeah, like Rudy Ray Moore. Yeah, I mean, it's literally, it's like the kung fu in Dolomite or the Human Tornado. And of course, like I go back to Mike Accomando. He said the only thing Rudy Ray Moore's black belt serves is to hold up his pants. and he's like, and it's like he said, Rudy Ray Moore can throw a kick or a punch. You can get up from your couch, walk to the kitchen, get a beer, come back, and he's still throwing the same one. I love stuff. I like bad kung fu is crude, sloppy kung fu. Neophyte kung fu is as much fun or more to watch than the real deal. I mean,
and one of my all-time favorite fight scenes, which is TV, not film, but still to this day, original Star Trek. Our friend William Shatner with the Gorn. Who has like a disco outfit on, and they're at like Vasquez Rocks in Santa Clara. It's like, and it's like you can see him like literally missing it. And it's like,
well, the best part of any Star Trek fight is the music. The dun 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 dun.
Will happen.
Love it. But by the way, Maria,
that like sense of like, we're just having fun, and I think Todd nailed it. There's an earnestness. Like, I'm gonna try to play this, and like whatever the voice is at the end, and she's like, "No, I'm totally interested in you." I was like, "Oh my God!" Judy Holliday came into the picture. It was like this bizarre. Like,
the action sequences in this made me think of Paul Greengrass. Born Supremacy, Born Identity movies, and the reason is because it was shaking so much, and the editing is frenetic and it's weird, and I was like, but so it makes sense for this movie to do that, have weird close-ups and shake it, and people are doing this with their hands because you're covering up something.
But Matt Damon,
why does Paul Greengrass do it? Because Matt Damon trained for that shit.
Matt Damon,
well, why did Christopher Nolan use handheld shots in an IMAX movie? That's like it's the most horrifying cinematic experience imaginable. It's like having your head stuck in a fishbowl and shaken. It's just awful. And but no, it was, by the way, Maria de Aragon, the lead gal in this, she was Greedo in Star Wars. I think there were maybe two. I'm not a Star Wars authority. I think there might have been two people that played Greedo. I don't know, and I'm sure
that is such a good deep cut.
But she was Greedo, and there's actually pictures of her with George Lucas as Greedo, and she's wearing heels. It's like I just love. But when I looked it up, I couldn't believe. I was just so happy. But anyway,
well, knowing that, maybe now I believe that Greedo shot first.
He did shoot first.
maybe, and he didn't miss. He did miss actually. Yeah, he did miss. Good point. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I love that there's even controversy about that, because if you read the original production draft, you're like, no, he shot first. it's like okay. This is amazing. So, but like, you're right though. But like, there's this kind of like these guns that they have. Like even the gun he has, it's like a sawed-off shotgun or something. Like I'm not a gun person, but I was like, what is he firing? That it only has like 2 bullets. Like he's, it's like Wyatt Earp, but it's like.
Well, he has that. But what makes it so great is like, there's that part where the guys are chasing him in that kind of like that little sort of jitney thing, and he fires the shotgun at him, and it's all of a sudden it's like one of those blasters from Logan's Run, and it blows up and the guys are on fire. It's like, what were they carrying, like nitro or something in there, and moonshine jars, or
it's literally it's like a rickshaw, and he has this gun, and then suddenly you're right, there's like pyrotechnics.
Yeah.
But I love but Vic, I should talk a little bit about the other cast members. Vic Diaz that plays the driver. Diaz was like, he was again, I'll go back to Acomando. He's a great source. He said, Vic Diaz is like the Peter Lorre of the Philippines, and Filipino Peter Lorre. And he's in a million of those movies. Like he's in The Beast of the Yellow Night. He's the devil in, he's one of the guards in The Big Birdcage. He just shows up in these things over and over and over again. Same with Sid Haig. Sid Haig, actually, I remember him telling a story. He made so many movies in the Philippines, they eventually threw a party for him at one of the big hotels in Manila because he had stayed there more than any other person. He set the record. Like he did so many movies in the Philippines. Him and Pam Grier, and like I said, Roberta Collins, who's wonderful. And but yeah, Sid. It's so funny seeing Sid with hair, Natalie dressed, doing that kind of mid-Atlantic accent.
Yes.
Our customers are quibbling over.
Oh no! There it goes.
And I want that ice cream treat that he's eating. Oh yeah, the thing at the end. He is having so much fun at the end, like where he pops up and looks around and then walks off, and then the sword cane, and I'm so happy he gets away. I'm so happy.
So, like he's prefiguring like Purple Rain here. I mean, he's like Prince, like a decade before. It's like
totally. It's like Prince, somewhere between Prince and a pirate.
Yeah,
kind
of like
what was
Darth Vader maybe, in that he gets away at the end.
Well, that and what is it? I love. Oh my God! Another thing when they're shooting, it's just the right level of crudeness. It's just the right level, like where they're shooting up. The gal switches sides at the end, and she joins up with Maria de Aragon and Ross Hagen, and she's shooting the lab up, and it's like she's shooting an Orange Julius machine, or like a soda, like a drive-in, like a theater. Yeah, that's it. He's like, it looks like it's incredible with that hypno wheel and everything. It's just the right level.
For the kids at home, the genius of this is he's right. It is like a repurpose. I was thinking KFC drink machine, but the idea is that Nancy Kwan's mad scientist doctor, and each one of these different compartments has like tongues and eyes and all these parts from other people.
Yeah, she's got the Peter Cushing, Dr. Frankenstein kind of thing with the eyeballs floating in a.
I love about this still, because like in the movie it goes by pretty fast, but I love that you pointed this out just because I was like, I don't know what that wheel is, but it's fabulous. You can see the tanks leaking. Like they're like, hurry, quick, roll the camera.
Yeah. No, also I love that they look like a dirty aquarium. Totally. Like it's like all the fish died, but also one of the other. So when there probably is. So when they get to might have been at that same hotel that Sid Haig stayed at, but so anyway, there's on Dr. Seuss Island. She of course, like every Bond villain, she shows Mike Harbour around and explains her operation, and then they have brain sex. Brain sex,
which is better than physical sex, according to Dr. Seuss, right?
According to the look on Ross Hagen's face, Like he is going for broke in that scene. He has given it his all. Like just, I mean, all those like
they're wearing hubcaps. Like I can't. It's so good.
This was borrowed, by the way. This was definitely borrowed by Demolition Man. Was
yeah.
I can believe it. The what was it? But then but the best part is she has to do this operation on this old geezer and on Rupert Murdoch. And so what was it? She's going to like take concrete and a splint and give him a hard on again or whatever. So anyway, he's got to operate on this guy. And then she's like, oh, well, I'm just going to leave that to my underlings. I'm going to go have brain sex, and everything goes horribly wrong. But to your point about like the fact who's to say she hasn't been a recipient of a transplant? She might have been like an 80 or 90-year-old woman and had a transplant. Or it could be one of these things like Seconds, like John Frankenheimer's Seconds, where you have a company that for an enormous amount of money will give you a new body and the life you want. But the best part of the movie is, and they never come out and say it, the head of the company that does it is an old man. It's Will Geer. Unlike Cy Sperling, he is not a client. He just owns it. He knows better. But I love this. And actually, the guy that plays Mr. Paulson, the old man, also, he doubles as the guy who's sent to hire Mike Harbour. And it's the same actor. Same actor.
Wait a minute. Wait a second. That's the same actor?
Yeah, it's the same actor, just under a lot of makeup. Yeah, same guy. Wow. Yeah, that's him. Same guy. And actually, the makeup for what the movie is, the makeup's really not bad on him. It's just the classic, like scrunch your face up and do latex and whatever. But
it's no worse than Guy Pearce in Prometheus. It's no worse.
True. Actually, it's probably better, and it has more of an excuse to look like that. So
I was like, that's an older actor. What's happening?
But I love But I love the fact that when she's introducing all of her experiments gone wrong, Nancy goes, she points to one and she goes, this one I call Tyrannosaurus Rex, after the dinosaur.
Yeah.
And it's like, so the first and second graders who don't know what a Tyrannosaurus Rex is yet now, that's what it is. That's what it is. Not the Ray Bradbury short story. It's the dinosaur. And I love the fact that there's like the Dr. Moreau sort of thing. That's what I mean by this is an and then movie. Yeah. Okay, so the girls with the machine guns and the mini skirts kidnap a bunch of guys. And then the secret agent shows up. And then one of the girls tries to kill the secret agent. And then they have a long chase through Manila. And then. And it just kind of like it keeps upping the ante. And I've been dying to see this one. I would love to see a print of this in a theater. The colors are great. They have those like colors. They have those like ice like lollipop or popsicle colored outfits that just jump off the screen. It's just the right level. Oh, and that Simon, it looks like a Simon game on the ceiling, which I love.
It does. It totally. It's just it's so funny because like even like the kind of the people, like the guy in the background is one of the athletes the gals have kidnapped, that they're going to use him for parts to kind of help this Rupert Murdochian type character. But like I love that they show it in this kind of color and detail. But again, the fembot thing keeps coming back, because if you recall in the at least the first season of Bionic Woman, when John Houseman was playing, the creator of the fembots, he also stores the gals just like they are in this movie. I mean, there's a lot of like reciprocity in terms of the hot gals, the color, the primary colors, the fembots dress the same way. And so there's a lot of echoes when I was watching this. I'm like, it's again, watching it on Tubi, so not doing it justice, but it looks like a flat 70s TV show. They look like the fembots, but then it's like zhuzhed up to what should have been an R, really, with the violence and the nudity. I mean, you have 3 topless chicks in the first 2 seconds, and they're like PG. I'm like, really? Okay. But like it is very prefiguring of some of the stuff to come that was streamed us kids in the 70s. So I think if you're a Gen Xer watching this, there's this weird comfort. Even the first time I saw this film, which was literally, yesterday, I was like, God, this feels like what I grew up with. It brought back the era, the colors,
Well, it's one of those. I had one of my friends went to see a guy I knew who grew up in the 70s. Went to see he went to see ABBA the movie.
Yeah.
And he said that movie, I can't remember what year it came out. Let's say like 75. I'll just say 75.
Okay.
He went to see it and he goes, that movie smells like 1975. Like, and the thing about Wonder Woman is everything about it looks like 1973. Like even the interiors of the cars in the beginning. And by the way, it's so, what's her name? As hot as Roberta Collins was, she looks every bit as good in that kind of like Annie Lennox male drag.
Yeah.
She looks so like there's something like so hot about her. Like you could put her in a potato sack and she'd look great. But
yeah, and I love that there's like antagonism between like kind of the ginger and the blonde. She's like, "You get off my back!" Like they're doing like Clint Eastwood dialogue, but they're like fembots, and you're like, "Oh."
Well, also, and the other thing is like they're taking the when before the what do you call them, the athletes are dissected and all split up. They're in a state of like semi like sort of zombie like status. The girls take them and screw the hell out of them, and it's like well, and why not, but the
also, again, this is because you're correct, that is what's happening, but you're also like there is a whole inversion of what we're used to seeing in terms of things like consent. Like she's basically lobotomized, monsterized these guys the way typically women are in these kinds of grindhouse situations. But like somehow with the ladies, it doesn't come off quite as crazy. But it's funny because when she does show everybody like the layer of what she's been working on, I don't know if I have a still, but like you don't get to see the guys until they break out. So like the girls are like, release the Frankenstein's monsters. And then you start to see this guy who has like a light bulb in his head, who's got the girl. And then you've got this guy who has like kind of like a mask you got on Hollywood Boulevard. And you're just like, and then it becomes like this weird, the monsters have the girls right down to the 50s poses, which you realize is like, 20 years before. So there's this tongue-in-cheek 50s thing with the women that, are in power and then not, and then are again. So it's actually a pretty progressive in its own weird PG but not PG way.
That's why that needs to. And also, and in the end, the girls win.
Yeah,
they win. I mean, they've got Mike at the end. Like you think he's coming on top. So, and I love that at the end he's shacking up with Robin Hilton of Doc Savage and Blazing Saddles fame, Governor Lepetamine's main squeeze.
And they are doing crazy things that are not very subtextual, we'll say.
Well, there's also something about the montages and the music and the deliberateness of them that, however crude they are, like you never get bored. You're never bored.
I agree with you. I think this movie feels like it was made chasing after pacing. Like in its low budget way, it wanted to make sure that you were entertained the whole time. And that's why, I mean, it's only an hour, 20 minutes all told. So one, that it knows that that's all the footage it really had to give, and the way it puts it together, also, I think it's a mark of goodness.
I agree with that. And one of the things because like, again, I grew up with older parents, and they were showing me James Bond films in kindergarten. Great. Hey, James. Hey, Money Brother. Well, fine. Oh, it's Dr. Holly Goodhead. Mom's like, right. But it's like, I kind of have a fondness for that era for very
It's like, hey, this is my colleague, Dr. Haywood Jablomi.
Exactly.
It's like, come on.
Yeah, right.
And Tracy, I agree with you. This movie evoked Bond for me, more specifically like Roger Moore Bond.
Yeah.
Cheap sex jokes and girls in bikini.
Where in these kinds of movies, usually it's the dudes that are kicking ass and taking names, and they get all the good gadgets. One of my favorites, and again, this is the era where, 73, I wasn't really a thing yet, but maybe 7 years later, I was wearing underoos because I thought those were the coolest thing ever. But I appreciated like the setup for this scene where she's like, got that. And then you do this thing where you're like, oh, she's like, my guy's there. She's lifting up her little barely there dress. and she's got like a Chinese star attached to her underwear, and I don't know how, or I don't want to think about it too hard.
Where do you keep your Chinese stars?
I'm a pacifist.
Hey, look, after I saw Papillon, I started hiding mine in funny places, so we won't talk about that. No, but that's what I mean. What I mean is those silly, the good version. The silly, just those wacky touches like that. And it keeps having one after the other, after the other, after the other. And I
want to give props to my favorite version of what you're saying, Justin, because it's like, okay, so the great Nancy Kwan is like, you can't escape who you are, or whatever her signature line is. So she's like lecturing him, like, you can't win. I'm behind bulletproof glass, you fool. And then she has like, I don't know, a Phantom of the Opera smog machine. She's like, poof.
Yeah, the birds, and then she vanishes. That's what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. It's
like so good. Yeah.
Well, so I got to have dinner with Nancy Kwan a few years ago. We have a mutual friend, and I did her a favor that evening, just a little favor, technical favor. And so we all went out to dinner, and I knew she was going to be meeting us, or we were going to be meeting her. And I said, okay, you owe me a favor. All I'm going to ask in return is, would you sign these? And I pulled out two photobustas, Italian photobustas from Wonder Woman, and she was totally happy to sign them. And the funny thing was, she said she had sounded like she had a lot of fun on it, and it was very special to her because Ross Hagen introduced her to her husband Norbert on that movie.
Yeah.
And, so she was. But the funniest thing was,
you
literally,
remember what she had for dinner when you ate together?
I think that flaming volcano soup. That what is it? That was it. It sounds like they say your Mayan volcano soup is the finest and whatever. But no, I don't. But anyway, but yeah. So, and also speaking of the girls, there we go.
It's so great.
Can you put that up closer?
Yeah,
This isn't signed or anything. It's just wonderful. It's just magic. But but she was fine with talking about, like, it wasn't like, she was ashamed of it or anything but I just, and the funny thing was, I had on my last camera, literally one of the first two pictures on it were screenshots from Wonder Woman, and one of them was Nancy, and she's like standing in front of the equipment, and her eyes were really wide open, like kind of like she looks almost like shocked in the image. And I showed it to her, and she goes, "Who is that monster?" But no, she's great. Like I was wonderful. It was really wonderful. And I just, by the way, the foreign titles to this are great. In France, I think in Italy it was called Les Sensitives. I don't know how you pronounce it. The Sensitive. That was one of the titles. I think that might have been in France. And one of the French titles was something like Steel Thighs and Iron Wills, or something like that. It's Steel Thighs and Icy something. I can't remember what it is, but it's fantastic. Steel Thighs and Icy something. But I mean, anything
is fine. It's all
Steel Thighs and as a title is always good.
Interesting point, Jeff. She doesn't have enough screen time, but she still kind of dominates the movie.
This is a point that Jeff is making that's not entirely wrong, but he clearly hasn't seen the last 30 Steven Seagal films.
Well, it's also it's one of those things like Orson Welles talked about it. It was the Mr. Wu effect. There's a play called Mr. Wu, and everybody keeps talking about Mr. Wu and talking about Mr. Wu and talking about Mr. Wu, and then he only shows up in about the last 20 minutes, and you can't take your eyes off of whoever's playing Mr. Wu. It's like Harry Lyman, the Third Man. They keep talking about it, and he finally shows up. But she's in a fair amount. I mean,
roles, though. I mean, like there's the one scene role like a Alec Baldwin and Glenn Gary, and he still dominates the movie, but he's there for one scene. But then there's isn't Judi Dench famously she got her Oscar for 6 minutes as the Queen in Shakespeare in Love because they screwed her over for Mrs. Brown the year before. It's but you see those things. Like even I was bummed because I love Olivia Colman. don't hate on me. I think she's fabulous. But when I saw The Favorite, I was like, you're a supporting actress. There's 3 equal leads here. And I thought Glenn Close and the wife could have won because Glenn Close always should win and she never does. She really carried that movie, whereas Olivia is so good. When you look at it, she's like in a third of that movie. And I feel like Hannibal Lecter, right? I mean, I think we all probably, a lot of us on this call might think, okay, Brian Cox for the win in Manhunter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But Hopkins gets the Oscar for less than 12 minutes in Silence of the Lambs, and the great Elsa Lanchester. If you don't count her, the bookends as Mary Shelley and Bride of Frankenstein, she's there for like 7-8 minutes. So, but it's Bride of Frankenstein. It's iconic, but she's barely there. And so there are certain people that I think have that ability and the characters. And Nancy Kwan to me is like so pretty. She's so easy to look at, and she really, I think Todd, you nailed it earlier. It's like there's an earnestness. Like she's like, I'm a doctor and I'm the best and I'm gonna do that. And I'm like, yes, Nancy. Like I'm totally with her. Like she, and sometimes when you see these movies, especially some of the Corman-esque ones, they don't always have. There's Pam Grier and there's others. We'll leave it there. But they commit. And Nancy is like, I worked with William Holden. I am good. And you're like, yes, you are. And it's just like she's just great. I like to see more.
Yeah, right. Oh, she's right. But you know what? I have to take a second and talk about my favorite Ross Hagen lines in the movie that are just like that totally sold me on it. And they come out of like they're non sequiturs in the best way. There's the part where he's visiting Wonton Charlie in the City of the Dead, or the what is it? And I love stuff like that. It has all those great pulp names for things.
Chapel by the Sea, City of the Dead.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So Wonton Charlie goes, information, a priceless commodity. And Ross Hagen goes, yeah, just like sex. Anyway, it's like.
By the way, Wonton Charlie is special, guys.
Wonton Charlie is they based M. Butterfly on Wonton Charlie, I think.
That's likely, but you have these weird juxtapositions, and you lead. And this is like the little rickshaw car chase that But again, he has a sawed-off handgun shotgun thing I've never seen before. And these little guys, it's just there's so many fun details in this film. I just think it's better than it needs to be. Someone really cared and it shows, and I like that. I forgive so much because they obviously did this on the cheap in a different country with no animal cruelty laws, but I think somebody cared.
Yeah, no, it's just it is.
Go with it. You will care too. Yes, about the entertainment value.
Justin, what's your director of this film?
It was directed by a guy named Robert Vincent O'Neill. Yeah. Who made other exploitation movies like Bloodbania and so forth. And I don't know if I've seen any of his other movies. It's just this one is so good. I just keep going back to it. I probably watch it about every 2 years or so. But it's it also it's very nostalgic for me because as I said, I taped it when I was a teenager and what they're doing is they are not shortchanging the audience in terms of entertainment value and action and liveliness and humor and everything else. I would love to see this with an audience.
Yes.
You can see the notes that would get an audience going. And it's and again, there's just something I love the sleazy grubbiness of Ross Hagen's character. He's not like a slick James Bond character. He's just something kind of like gross about him, and I kind of love that. But Hagen was he was a exploitation star. He's in Side Hackers, the Hellcats. He produced some. I think he produced and might have even directed. There's one called Bad Charleston Charlie that's like a 20s gangster movie. And he did, later on, he had a good career as a voice actor. And actually, my buddy, Dan Griffith, who I do a lot of Blu-ray extras and stuff with, I think he filmed Ross Hagen's last job. It was as a host for a documentary, and he got to film Ross. But I never met him. I always wanted to. I was always a big fan. And
He's got a cool energy, but he's almost like C version Vic Morrow, little Michael J.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, and I like. There's something about certain exploitation actors where, I don't even really care if they're doing a great job. I just enjoy watching them, and I enjoy the movies they're in. There's certain actors that, like, even when they're not that great, they're always fun to watch. Always.
Yeah,
I agree.
No, I think Sid Haig is
some of our biggest stars currently are exactly that.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's funny. I'm working with an actress on a project, and she's fairly well known, and she's absolutely gorgeous, but she's really a great character actress. And she was saying to me, yeah, she's got a bunch of stuff. It's like, don't cry, it's all good. But she's like, yeah, when I lose out to roles, it's interesting. It's like Laura Linney or Laura Dern, and she's like, and I'm like, and I said, because you look more like a traditional movie star, but you have that ability to be a character actor, and I feel like that's good. Like one of my all-time favorites, is the great Barbara Stanwyck, of course. And Stanwyck was doing like pre-code Warner Brothers delicious shit. Like, all the titles for the age, right? Interns Can't Take the Money, Ladies They Talk About, Babyface,
Night Nurse. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, this is a little dirty, right? But like, she's doing that in the 20s, early 30s. But then she's winning Emmys up into the Thornbirds when we were all little kids. That lady worked for like 60, 70 years, from Ziegfeld Follies all the way to the Thornbirds and Big Valley in between. And I think one of the first big movie stars to get television. And, it did that. She had her own show, Big Valley for her. But like, I feel like, but she's gorgeous, but she was like a broad and ultimately a great actor.
So that reminds me, and I don't mean this ironically. I mean it totally straightforwardly. One of my very favorite performances in an exploitation movie ever is in it's an Isaac Hayes movie called Truck Turner. Jonathan Kaplan did it, and the villainess in it is this vicious, hateful, venom-spewing, foul-mouthed madam named Kalinda, and she's played by Nichelle Nichols. And I love that performance so much because, what happened was I asked Jonathan Kaplan about it, and he said she was so sick of playing like the nice girl, the like well-spoken, upstanding kind of character. She wanted to prove she could play like a down and dirty character role. And it's like, she is like, what's George Bernard Shaw's description of the Sphinx? Part woman, part animal, all God. That's Nichelle Nichols in Truck Turner. She's fantastic, and the stuff she says, I can't repeat any of her dialogue because there's expletives like every other word. But I mean, you're sitting there and you're going, God damn, she can act. Like, she's so good. She's giving people a chance for that girl, or like John Hurd in Cutter's Way, doing like a great. He's fantastic. I don't think he ever got a part that that rich again. I mean, not to say he didn't get.
Wait a second. You're discounting Chud.
Chud.
No. I'm not. No, I never discount Chud, but the and I love the fact.
But Justin, to your point, what we were just talking about, John Hurd, he's a good-looking guy, but he's really more of a character actor. And so they didn't know quite what to do with him. But he never gave a bad performance. Like, he's wonderful. I feel the same about Dennis Quaid. Dennis Quaid looks like a movie star, but is that his best when he's doing Flesh and Bone and like Breaking Away and not
what's the other one or Great Balls of Fire?
Great Balls of Fire. The Big Easy. My God, he's so good in Ellen.
He's so natural. He's so natural.
Yeah, but when you put him in something where he's he's one of our. He's a great character actor, but he looks like a leading man, and I think sometimes it's neither or thing, right? It's
a disadvantage. Yeah. No, I think. Well, what was it? Oh, by the way, before just this is totally random. One of my again a great moment in the movie is where they're releasing Dr. Seuss freaks, and the way the actor says is like they've let out Dr. Seuss freaks. It sounds like Dr. Seuss freaks, and it's like, what did they let out? Like the Lorax? Did they let out?
You guys, the cat.
Did they let out
one of them collecting eggs from different continents?
I think I saw the thorax.
The Dr. Seuss freaks. I love that. But it's like there's it again. It hits all the and I love the soundtrack. I wish somebody would put out a soundtrack album. It's like it's just.
I was going to ask you because it feels like Mondo should do this on like a multicolored vinyl album.
I'd love to have that happen. You know, I just discovered they actually, speaking of the Filipino, exploitation movies, there's an album of, there's a soundtrack album to Mad Doctor of Blood Island, which was another like very, very popular Filipino lensed horror movie. Aside from the cockfight, you know what? I'll say this though. There's a scene that was cut for Deadly and the Beautiful, and the movie actually probably would do better without it, is where Mr. Paulson's assistant makes Sid Haig, wash his hands and do this and do that, and he checks the briefcase and all that. That whole buildup. Yeah. In Deadly and the Beautiful, it just starts off with that dun 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 dun. This sounds like merry old England. That kind of horse poo-poo music, and then it cuts to that great low shot of Sid Haig walking in towards Paulson, and it's but that scene's kind of like eh. But other than that, I mean, there's a shot that's in the trailer where where the guy that's had his eyes removed sits up and you can see the eye sockets.
Yeah, that's not in the film. Yeah,
it's not in the. It's like you start to see them and they cut,
and then they go through the eyes in the tank. But you're right. It's not in the final film. Yeah. Yeah, but it's there's so much to love about it, and trust me, it holds up after. We should get together. I've got the Blu-ray. Sometime we should get together and I'll show you the Blu-ray.
Is it in high def? Is it remastered? Is it?
It looked good to me. I mean, I think this is the kind of movie that can only be so remastered. Right. But I don't know. You know, it's funny. I don't know what. I swear, the version I saw on YouTube looked better. It was. I mean, I was surprised how good it looked. Because again, remember, I grew up watching a crappy off-TV VHS copy. It's pan and scanned with lots of cuts. I love that damn movie. Just love it.
I also love scenes where she's like, she has a big rifle in the middle of an empty polo field and no one notices. Like, and we accept it. It's just like.
I just, what was it? That's it. It's it was funny. There was a guy I went to college with named Nick Ziegler, and he had, grown up partly in the Philippines. And I showed him the opening of Wonder Woman, and he goes, and there's that basketball court where they get the basketball player, and he goes, oh, that's at my high school. That was my high school. And I was like, these are movie locations I would love to visit. Like, and where the hell was her stronghold? I love that location they used for Dr. Seuss Stronghold.
It is.
That's a good set. That's a really good location.
But again, that's the Bond connection. It seems like Spectre would hang out there.
Yeah, there's when I was first watching it, that was Tracy the thought I had. I was like, I feel like I'm watching a bunch of outtakes from like late Connery, early more Bond movies.
Yeah, like
cut together
where his friends are hanging out in this.
Which it turns out I think is a really good idea. Why have Bond? It's kind of pointless when you think about it.
I love it. But I just thank you for bringing this to the show. I just think it's
my pleasure. My pleasure. It's just when I don't watch exploitation movies nearly as much as I used to, but when I do, I want them to be like a triple shot of exploitation espresso. I want them to hit like to not just have a few interesting moments or one good scene. I want it to be high note, high note, high note, high note. You know, something like Lucio Fulci's Zombie or this or
Zombie. That's one of my favorites. I was like, Todd, it's called Zombie 2. He's like, no, it's Zombie. I'm like, Zombie 2.
Well, I love that. Have you seen that? I love the British trailer where it goes, zombie flesh eaters. Zombie flesh eaters. Instead of having like a Percy Rodriguez voice like, zombie flesh eaters, they will eat the flesh off of your body.
Totally, right? It's like, it was
zombie flesh eaters. Zombie flesh eaters.
Zombie flesh eaters.
It's like it's being narrated by a Dalek.
I have to say, one of my happiest moments during the pandemic, and there weren't a lot of them, was discovering and finally seeing Fulci's Zombie or Zombie 2, depending on what channel you're watching now. Just for this sequence alone, where you've got, of course, the female scientist is topless randomly, and then the two guys are dressed, stepping normally. But you're like, there's a zombie walking on the floor of the ocean. I'm like, that I don't.
And there's topless woman, shark, and then
no, it's the setup though. It's like you see the zombie, you're like, oh shit, he's gonna get her, and then all out of nowhere is the shark, and then you got the zombie who's like punching the shark, and then the topless chick gets away, and I'm like, what did I just see?
And the zombie wins. The zombie kills the shark. He bites a chunk out of it. It's like, that's what I mean. That's what an exploitation movie should be.
And it's an important message. The only way to stop our current shark problem is to create zombies. That's the only way.
Is to send well, because the topless women failed. Yes, send the zombies. There you go.
She got out for once. She's not Chrissy Watkins. She got away with her life.
Oh, but by the way, speaking of Lucio Fulci, they had a great Q&A the other day with Franco Nero at the Aero. And he was funny as hell. And they asked him about Lucio Fulci, and he goes, he's talking about all these other directors he worked with, like, Sergio Corbucci and stuff. He goes, these other directors, they are kind of choosy about what they do. They want to do the projects that mean the most to them. Lucio Fulci, he didn't care. He just wanted to work. He didn't give a damn what he worked on. But yeah,
God bless Fulci for that. For that alone.
That guy has some weird thing with eyeballs, man. I don't think he's ever made it. Like, I can't think of a Clint Eastwood film where a woman's in it who's not like raped, beaten up, or a horror. It's very hard. I mean, maybe the one I did, like Invictus. There are no women in that movie, so it was easy. But like, even with the Ruth Gordon films, it's like, it's funny. We're hitting her in the head, and it's like, it's not funny. And even like Unforgiven, where it's the whole she's a whore who is raped and cut up. I'm like, there's Clint. But it's like, but with Fulci, it's like he's never seen an eyeball. He doesn't function. That scene with the splinter is I can't watch.
He clearly has the same thing I have, which is a fear of sharp things around my eyeballs.
It's so
I don't
hard
like it, so I get where he's coming from. Should we do this, Tracy?
Do the thing. Do you think you go first? You go first.
Be bad or be best. Yes, I'm happy to go first. So, Justin, you're a film historian. You'll fix the opinions on this. My be bad or be best, which is it's up to you. If it's so bad nobody should ever see it, or if it's so bad it's awesome, or maybe it's not bad at all. You can say whatever.
Probably.
Yeah, maybe. And thank you. So I wanted to. Both my movies that I'm picking for both of our ending segments tonight are PG rated movies that go hard, because I felt like it was in deference to Wonder Woman. So this is Wes Craven's Swamp Thing, which I saw for the first time on a VHS tape at a neighbor's house near the lake where I went to for the summer, and I loved it. But there was a whole orgy sequence, and I didn't understand it. I didn't know why I was watching that. I was told this was a PG movie, and I'm a child, and I'm being exposed to things I shouldn't be exposed to. But is it a be bad or be best for you, Justin?
You know what? Definitely not be bad. Definitely not be bad. I will say be best because it's such a nostalgia rush for me. Because when I was in the 80s, HBO would show the same like 8 movies on an endless cycle. So you saw there's certain movies that are like holy writ to me, that were beaten into me like catechism to a little Catholic kid. You know, it was like, wait a second, Lone Wolf McQuade, Midnight Madness, Beastmaster, you know, HBO, hey, Beastmaster's on, Swamp Thing, Something Wicked This Way Comes, and a couple of others. I saw Swamp Thing so many times, and my memories of it are better than any horror movie will probably ever be for me again, because certain scenes were so horrifying to me as a kid. The part where Nicholas Worth is turned into that like little person pig creature, and the thing where Dr. Arcane turns into that monster at the part where Swamp Thing's hand grows back and all that. And also because, you know, I interviewed Dick Durock for my PAL book because he was in Doc's. But I kind of like, I like it. And look, Adrian, what a cast. It's like Dick Durock, Adrian Barbeau, Nicholas Worth, was in David Hess. Yeah. But the only thing is, I wish someone would do the first 10 issues of Swamp Thing as Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson did them, which would be spectacular. They're just, but anyway, so.
But would that be a better series or
series?
Series, actually, that was really well done and no one saw it.
I like the series too. Yeah,
the series is good. I mean, I'm biased. My friends wrote on it, but I think it's good. I also think it's best. I do think it's a nostalgia thing. I remember I got permission from my parents to take my little Schwinn bike, and I rode my bike to see Swamp Thing at it used to be a twin theater next to the library in good old Mission, PA. The old Mission founded in 85. Like, you're not an old Mission. It was the year after Ghostbusters. But anyway, so I remember seeing that, and I knew who Adrian Barbeau was because I watched a lot in my household. And I feel like I already had seen Escape from New York. I feel like it was right around the same time. So, but I always really liked her, and I just thought she was definitely in the mold. I had already seen Alien, of kind of like that almost Sigourney, the smart brunette who makes good decisions. And I remember thinking it was really cool that she was cool, but I also remember having so much love for Swamp Thing. Like, there's a sweetness and a heart to that. And, you know, like kind of like the same way if people can still watch the original, was it 31 King Kong and not tear up, like Kong loves her. I still cry when I've seen that film 50 times. Yeah. And I just there's a it's not as elegant obviously as the original King Kong, but there's something to that. And Barbeau having her own history and clearly working with Carpenter and genre. Like, I just felt like she understood, not only as a really good actor that she is, but as a fan. And there's something about this, I think as a young girl, I was really moved, even though I thought it was scary and concerning. And I'm like, what's happening in this movie? But like, I think it's a really special movie. And so be best. I love that. I hadn't thought about that for a while. It's cool.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I love it. But also, I mean, nostalgically for me, it was a bunch of things that I don't normally get from PG movies. It wasn't just the nudity.
Well, to be fair,
it was there were very disturbing deaths in that movie. You're talking about the guy that got turned little, like, you know, like his head is crushed, and it's just the whole thing really disturbed me. So I remember it because of that, which is so funny because when I watch it now, it's like I'm always like, really, Todd, you got freaked out by Swamp Thing?
Well, the funniest story I heard about Swamp Thing was from one of the makeup guys from it was telling me for the part where, you know, the Nicholas Worth turns into the little person pig creature. He didn't have a life cast of the actor to work from, and he literally made the bald cap from, I think it was like a salad bowl or something, and there were ridges in it, so you can actually see ridges in the makeup that were just there because they were in the bowl. And and you know, I mean, when you're making a movie that cheap and on the fly and so forth, well, the funniest, and also originally, and I remember the photos appearing in, I think, like Cine Fantastique, Swamp Thing had like a little, like Swamp Thing had a thing. He had like a root between his legs, and it was, they were like, nah, you know. Even like in the comic, he has that kind of like Ken doll crutch, you know, and I think it should stay that way, you know. But the
I love
yeah.
it.
What's yours, Tracy? What do you got?
Well, I didn't go with the PG theme, which is a really, I thought more about that. I went with female ensemble now, sort of now, a couple years ago now. Be Bad, Be Best. It's the girl auxiliary version to the Ocean's 11 remake, but because there's women, there's only 8, because, you know. Ocean's 8, the great Sandra Bullock, Kate Blanchett. My God, Rihanna shows up in this. We have to sit through Anne Hathaway. That's okay. But I'm just curious about like Ocean's 8. Did you guys see it? And any thoughts on it?
Justin.
I haven't seen it, so I'm gonna have to sit this one out. So
right. You're not gonna judge just the poster?
No, I mean it might be good. I don't know. I mean, like, look, if it were, there's some movies that you know enough about that without seeing them, you can pretty well say, okay, this is going to be a disaster. In the same way that you can say, if I stand in the middle of a street and get hit by a car, it won't be fun. And I've got, you know, you can put together enough information and say, okay, I haven't seen this, but there's X, Y, Z, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's all these elements that add up to something that is very, very possibly a huge waste of 2 hours of my life, or 3 hours.
When I see trailers, they're like Charlie Hunnam in the remake of Papillon. I'm like, fuck you. Like, and I'm not even like, he's fine, but I was like, no one should take on Steve McQueen. Gorgeous. That film is perfection. I can't handle it. But
and it's Franklin Schaffner, man. Franklin Schaffner. We were talking about him the other day. Franklin Schaffner is so underrated. So underrated.
Mindy Kaling is awesome in this film, by the way. She does like all the cool stuff. And Rihanna, for me, I'm just gonna jump ahead. I think it's Be Best because Kate Blanchett has like this. She's dressed like some rock star, and Sandra Bullock really, aside from The Blind Side, she wins the Oscar. She won for Gravity. I just love her, and whatever Bullock and Kate are playing, it's like a different movie that I would have loved to have seen. It's not found, but like the rest of them are so great. I just feel like I love heist films, and I actually thought Ocean's 8. I'm not saying I'm not, you know, no shade on the sequels. I think Ocean's 8 is better than the George Clooney 3 that he remade, and I thought it was a little. It was kind of that era where everyone wanted to hate on the female Ghostbusters and the female Ocean. They both actually made money, but there's something special about this movie, and I thought of it for this. Well, it's better than it needed to be, and I enjoyed it. And women, I think, you never get to. Female stars rarely get to work together in modern day movies. They're always like the lead, and then there's a boy, or Judy Greer. You know, awesome, but always is the best friend. He's not as attractive as whoever the lead is. Right? They rarely get to work together. So to have this kind of expansive group of women, it reminded me of what I love so much about the film you brought, Justin, in terms of like these gals are all great, even the ones who barely had dialogue. Like they're having fun, they're committed.
Well, and they all have distinct personalities. You know, like they you know, there's and by the way, the gal with the afro, it's Shirley Washington. She was in one of my favorite completely insane exploitation. Yeah, she's in Darktown Strutters, which is like that movie. So Jack Fisk is up for the Oscar for the production design on Killers of the Flower Moon. Deservedly so. It's brilliant work. He got robbed at the Oscars. He's been robbed at the Oscars year in and year out, but he got robbed at the Oscars for Darktown Strutters. That movie is like, it's like George Clinton would watch it and go, you know, y'all need to take that down a notch or two. You guys need to take less acid. You guys, like, you know, it's one of the lunacy, but she's in that, so it's like I'm a huge fan of that movie. But yeah, but they all have distinct personalities. They're not just like one interchangeable woman.
No, Todd, did you see this one? Did you see Ocean's 8?
Yeah, I have it on Blu-ray along with the rest of the franchise, including the original with the Rat. The Rat Pack. I almost said the Rat Pack, but you know what I meant. The Rat Pack. Yeah, I have friends who don't like this movie. I know like it got like negative blowback. It's bizarre to me that it does because it has zero to live up to except being snazzy and having fun actors doing bullshit. That's what all these movies are. None of them are very good. The Soderbergh movies are fun. They're bubbly, but they're not really great. They don't change your life. You watch it from the beginning to the end, and you might like have about 10 minutes of I feel good about life afterwards, and then that's going to dissipate, and you're going to forget Ocean's 13.
But at least you got those 10 minutes.
Problem with this one, all I'm saying is if you have a problem with Ocean's 8 and you don't have a problem with all the other Ocean's movies, that's something to really consider about yourself.
100%.
It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make 100%.
Yeah, if they're meant to be light. It's meant to be light, and that's fine. That's totally fine.
I remember we were, I think a group of 10 of us. It's one of my favorite pictures, or 10 of us. We didn't understand the assignment. But we did a lineup of all 10 of us in a row with sunglasses underneath the marquee. Then we went to go see it because we're like opening week and we got to support the gals. It's one of my favorite pictures of 10 of my gal pals. We were just like, let's do this thing. And we loved it. But it was not lost on me in the theater that they were all women. I'm like, guys, really? I was like, but again, it made money, but I just felt like we were in that weird zone. But so the last thing we're doing now is the boost.
Here we go. The boost. I'm going to do the ticker. I'm going to do the ticker.
We have tickers like Fox News, except the truth. And so look at us. We have moving graphics. I mean, the production value, it's astounding. Todd, what did you
I'm going to go first. Another PG-rated movie that goes hard for me, at least. Also, this is nostalgic for me. This is a movie from the 80s, a rare Walt Disney horror film from that era. It's PG-rated. It's got Jonathan Pryce. It's got. I can't even begin to talk about how much I love this movie. It also has. I was talking to a friend of mine about just like you enjoy getting into the feeling of a movie. A movie creates just a texture, a feeling that you get into the tone of it, whatever it is, or the setting. It's just like you get immersed in the setting. And this movie has that to me. Like I get immersed in the small town setting, and I totally buy into supernatural circuits coming to town. And Pam Grier again, who I didn't know who Pam Grier was when I saw this thing, and I thought she was unbelievably gorgeous. And I was like, oh, where's more movies with that lady?
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to see the
poster. I was going to say the poster art is also so funny. It's like Disney doing kind of it's funny because when you look at this, they kind of made it a little softer on top. My memory of this when I was a kid was I loved it too, but I was young enough to still be a little scared of when he does the thing and their faces come on Jonathan Pryce's palms. I remember thinking, ooh.
Yeah, but that
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the thing I like about the pacing of this movie is that what's actually scary about it really does sneak up on you, and it becomes more apparent late in the second act and the third act, and then it's got that relentless quality of like a Freddy Krueger or a Jason that won't let up. And that's what worked for me as a kid. It works for me now. I think it's really.
I think it's one of my absolute it's one of my absolute favorites. I literally just reached over slightly to my left, and look what I have.
Oh wow, that's the score.
They just reissued the James Horner score, which is magnificent. See, originally there was a first cut of it, and I've had friends that have seen it and they've described it to me. And there was some stuff in it that I really wish they'd left in. But the original soundtrack was by George Delarue that did so much for the French New Wave movies. It's a beautiful score. The other score was. It's more like it sounds like music from a lost Universal horror movie, and it's fantastic. But I love the final version. I mean, one of the reasons Something Wicked works so much is the cast. You have it's not just Jason Robards and Jonathan Pryce who are superlative. It's all of these people like them who can deliver Ray Bradbury's lines.
Yeah.
Ray's dialogue can be very hard to translate to film or television, and when it works like gangbusters. Royal Dano is fantastic as Tom Fury. You've got Jack Dodson, who had been on stage doing Eugene O'Neill with Jason Robards. You have Dick DeValos as Mr. Crissetti. You have Pam Grier, who, as you say, is just phenomenal. Mary Grace Canfield as Miss Foley, and the kid actors are really, really good. But one of the things that struck me about, there's so much to, I mean, you could go on about it for hours, but the creepiest thing about it only hit me when I was like maybe in my early 20s. So Mr. Dark always grants people their wish, but with some horrible twist that completely ruins it in the worst possible way.
Yeah.
We have set up throughout the movie that Jim Nightshade is on the cusp of pubescence. He is interested in sex. Like, this is like, he's very curious about it. And he looks like his dad. His mommy, Diane Ladd, another great actress, says, oh, you look too much like your dad, blah, blah, blah. And she's obviously, like, she's been dating. And at the end, she's going to the circus, and Mr. Dark has told her, or his emissary has told her, her husband is back. Harry Nightshade's boy is back. And Jim also wants to be older. So Mr. Dark is going to age him forward and create this incestuous union. And they never say it. That for a Disney movie?
Yeah,
Jesus Christ. It's like, that's really intense. That's powerful stuff.
But then let's also, because yes, to all of that, but I remember even as a kid thinking, ooh, Disney was going dark. And that was when they were doing like Tron, and they were trying with the Black Hole.
Oh, Black Cauldron, Black Hole, all those dark movies.
Watcher in the Woods. That's a Gen X.
Yeah.
Betty Davis, you're like, oh Jesus! But like Disney, like Grimm's fairy tales, used to trust kids to be kids, and we can scare you. And probably a lot of dead mothers along the way. Anyway, but like you had that era of interesting things. And again, not to I understand everything's a corporation now, Walt's long gone, but you've got this thing in the current version of Disney where it's like we're just going to remake things. If it was an animated thing, now it's live action. If it was live action, now it's animated. And they keep doing the same thing. There was this glorious moment, where Disney would do a film like, Bedknobs and Broomstick. We could do that. We could do Watchers in the Woods. We could do
Return to Oz, which is just magnificent.
And I feel like I'm hopeful. There was an announcement this week that Sean Bailey, who delivered billions of dollars and huge hits for Disney, is stepping down after 15 years, and they brought in an amazing executive who's been doing Fox Searchlight. And my first thought was, because I'd like to live in hope, despite what I know about our industry. But I'm like, oh, someone from Fox Searchlight is actually doing interesting things going to Disney, and I hope it will be empowered by said stockholders to bring back the era we're talking about that influenced all of it. We filmed us because it wasn't so safe. It wasn't so, oh, there's a Little Mermaid again. Now she's a different color or whatever, and then half the country freaks out because a fictional character doesn't look like Ariel from a fucking cartoon or whatever, right? So it's like, can we get past the pearl pledging and go back to original stories again and stop remaking things we've seen? And I'm hopeful that maybe that can happen. I mean, but I think I love that you brought this film up, because I just think it's really,
I'm glad you guys like it so much. It's always been a fun.
But they haven't put it on Disney Plus because it doesn't fit the brand.
It is on Blu-ray. There's a mediocre looking Blu-ray out.
Yeah.
It's not a huge step. I wish somebody would really like. There's actually a documentary in the works on it. And it looks to be pretty good. So I love that movie. But what was it?
I know that DVD is out of print, but this DVD looks fantastic.
It does. Yeah. I mean, you don't really need the Blu-ray if you've got the DVD. And I have to say, Arthur Hill's narration, his performance of the narration at the beginning and end is like note perfect. I mean, I love that opening. I think, and I don't think Ray wrote that opening. I think it was like John Culhane. It was somebody else at Disney, but he captured the spirit of Ray's first chapter of Something Wicked so perfectly. Back among my neighbors who gave me my first glimpses of the fearful needs of the human heart. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. It's like I watch it practically every Halloween, and the soundtrack is just gold. And this beautiful, beautiful poster art by David Grove, the illustrator. David Grove.
Yes.
That's a great poster.
Very cool. All
Tracy,
right.
what's your movie? What are you boosting?
Well, I went ahead and broke the rules again because I had.
No.
I know. I went to a TV show directed that was launched by Michael Mann. So there's my connective film thing. But I'm late to this party. The second season just dropped. I had not watched any of it. I've read about 3 articles about how it's the best TV show no one's watching. It's on Max. And it would be Vice, which I thought was again interesting and violent, cool. It's really smart. I am completely binged through the first season. I started the second season, and it captures. It feels like a 70s film to me, like Yakuza. It feels like something cool. There's almost like there's even the bad guy. One of the bad guys is Sato, which makes me think of course, Black Rain, the Ridley Scott '87 film. And I'm really crushing on television series because it reminds me of the middle budget movies I grew up seeing in the 70s and 80s that we're not going to do. Hopefully we'll do that, not just on streamers, but we haven't. And I thought, well, here's the show that feels like that. And it's shot on location in Tokyo. So in terms of world, Something Wicked This Way comes, but the world of that movie is very tangible. And I feel like this one is in the 90s. So it's 90s Tokyo with the music of the time, the vibe of the time, and the clothes. And it feels like a movie that I would have seen back in the day. And so I was looking at things to see at the Alamo Drafthouse, and I was like, I don't want to see any of these things, sadly. And then Kimberly Snyder introduced me to Tokyo Vice, and I thought, oh my God, and now I'm hooked. So I just wanted to boost it. And for other film buffs like me who had ignored the series, if you have that, worth seeing because it's quite good. And Alan Poole has taken over a lot of the directing choices in this season 2 opening shot of Tokyo Vice is gorgeous and very exciting, and it's like Touch of Evil but with some AI help, and it's pretty flawless. It really drops you back into the second season, continuation of the first season in a flawless way that film used to feel. And I just really blown away by it, so I wanted to boost it.
I mean, I will watch it. Yeah, I'll watch that.
It's
that sounds
good.
great.
It's good. Oh my God! Someone finally caught us. Hi, Howard Kramer.
Hi, Howard Kramer.
This will replay as soon as we sign off. It'll give us 5 minutes. But yeah. So anyway, but I just wanted to say because I know we all have to boogie. But Justin, thank you as always for your brilliance and depth knowledge.
I thank you. And the girls, thank you. The Wonder Woman, thank you.
Hang on, let me see if I'm going to put you on solo layout so people can really see that. There he is.
Yeah.
There's Justin. Show him the photo now. Put the photo.
Oh, here we go.
There you go. There, now you can really see.
Dun 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 dun.
You guys are soundtracks, people. Come on now.
Buy Justin's books. That's the takeaway from tonight.
Guys, go on Rondo.com. Vote for both. They're both up for the same category. Basically, he's Meryl Streep. He's nominated twice in the same year. Make it happen. Super great. And just again, I want to say I will miss the show. I will watch you guys from afar in Belfast.
Yeah, you're gone for a month.
I'm back at the end of April. It's going to be a little longer than that.
My God, what will I do?
Well, you know what sucks? I wish at the end of this show I could sit there and go, "You cannot escape your destinies." And there's a poop of smoke, and I'm gone. And then later, like when you're off, like just sitting around having a nice drink, watching a movie or something, like a bunch of girls with guns, and one girl going like, like that just appear, and you know you're beat.
Yes, Howard. This is the one to read. The George Pal is definitive, but also the Dr. Fives Companion. Google it; it's fantastic. Support his book, and then I wrote 5 essays along with Justin in this one, which is kind of fabulous. But this has been around. He's curated Academy Museum stuff. He's written for electronic magazines. He's been doing this stuff for most of his life and interviewed people.
By the way, I have to, before we go, this is unrelated to anything we've talked about except for maybe William Holden. This is one of my favorite pieces. I randomly got this in a lot of other material. I love this so much. It's an advertising item for Blake Edwards SOB.
Yeah.
It is a bullshit paperweight. It is literally bullshit in lucite. It is a bullshit paperweight. I love that thing. And there on the back, SOB. There's your bowl, but it is a bullshit paperweight. I just like that. When I realized what it was, I was just like, that's.
We actually talked about that movie last week. It was one of our movies we did at the last segment, which is brilliant. So I will miss the show. Todd will be here holding down the fort with exciting guests and all kinds of new movies. So stay tuned. Watch the page for details. Again, Rondo, vote. We'll post it, the links on there. Anyone watching this at home, can get your votes. And just thank you guys so much. It was such a pleasure as always. And
all right, Tracy. God damn it! I can't believe you're leaving for a month just to make a movie.
I know. It's gonna be good though. It's gonna be good.
Yeah.
I'll send pictures along the way.
Please do, and send along pictures of Guinness. It's a priceless commodity, just like sex.
Yes, and it's better than I think it's better than brain sex. I think it's
I don't. Well, according to the look on Ross Hagen's face, nothing is better than brain sex. Like he just. So, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, bye everybody. Have a
good. Take good care. Have fun with Dr. Seuss freaks. Take care.